now. All right. So the plan for today for lab 2 is you guys are going to create your own Stroop task inside Toolkit. You're going to code your own Stroop task inside Toolkit. This is kind of what we started Wednesday in class. One of the in-class assignments was to have you guys watch those around 27 minutes worth of videos, steps 3 through 5. I also had you answer some questions. That was the purpose of that, was to kind of prepare you for what we're going to be doing today. And really, those videos are all you need to learn how to code inside Toolkit, though I will be giving you I'll be kind of running you through things on how to do things in a demonstration right now. So I just sent out an email to the whole class. I imagine you guys just got it. So you might want to take a look at that. That's kind of describing what you're going to be doing for today and how you're going to be turning it in. So this lab is different than a lot of the labs in the sense that we're not going to be collecting data and then analyzing the data. The purpose of today's lab is to get intensive training in actually coding inside Toolkit and creating basically your first experiment. And my intention is basically what you're doing today is going to be the skeleton for what you end up using as your coding for group project 1. So this is the start of a bigger project, group project 1 today, and you'll probably using this exact experiment that you're coding today with just slight modifications for the eventual group project 1 that we're going to get to. So you're going to code the Stroop task inside Toolkit, and then once everything's done and apparently working, you are going to make a Zoom video recording. And what you're going to have in the Zoom video recording, I did list in that email, but I'll say it again. The very first thing I want to see in that Zoom video recording, you'll be sharing your screen. That's how you'll do a Zoom video recording, is sharing your screen. And the very first thing I want to see on that screen share is like a Microsoft Word document or something that has all of the names of the group members who contributed for this assignment. Then show me that for a few seconds, and then I want to see one of you actually complete your own Stroop task that you program. So it'll take about 8 to 10 minutes, and you'll just speak, and it'll allow Victoria and I, who are the graders. Victoria will probably be doing the grading primarily. Will allow us to see exactly what you programmed the entire experiment in this recording. Then at the end of the experiment, once all of the trials are done, a button appears at the end of at the bottom of the screen. And I believe I sent a screenshot of what this looks like in the recent email. You want to click on that button. It says something like save the data file for later download and analysis. You have to click that before you close out the window. If you close the window without clicking that button, then you're going to have to do the entire thing again. Basically, that button creates a data file, which is then sent to the psytoolkit server, and then it goes to the analyze section of your experiment. While you're still recording, I then want you to, once you press that button, I want you to go to your analyze section, and then I should be able to see your entire data file. And so then while you're still recording, just move the screen so that I can see the entire data file. And once you've done that, then you can stop recording. Then you'll upload your video to Google Drive, and then send myself and Victoria an email. And I've given you Victoria's email in the recent email that I just sent you. Send the link to both of us as an email. And in that email, in the body of the email, please, once again, type all of the names of the people that contributed to this assignment. So you'll have all of your names in the Zoom video that you record and you create. And then I also want those exact same names to appear in the body of the email. So now what I'm going to do is show you the psytoolkit. I mean, you should already know a decent amount about how psytoolkit works, and I expect some of the things that you have learned by watching those videos Wednesday, I don't have to teach you all of that stuff again because it will be redundant. A lot of what you learned in those videos will be helpful today. Let me see this in the chat in case it's for me. Nope, that's not for me. Okay, so let's see, where was I? I guess now I will show you how to do the experiment, the Stroop experiment. Or I'll show you what I did, and basically you just need to replicate this. I'm literally going to show you the exact right answer. And so I don't actually think it's a terrible idea if you take screenshots. I'm going to post this video later, but it always takes YouTube like 30 minutes to process any video. So if you want this information now, this is the beginning of the script, and you'll be basically typing this exact stuff into psytoolkit to get your experiment to work. And so I'm going to kind of go through the various sections of the code, and I'm assuming that you know how to create a username and that you know how to upload the stimuli, because that's shown in the videos, and create an experiment and then name the experiment something. I don't really care what you name it. I call it psyc625 lab 1. You can call it psyc625 lab 2, or you can call it stroop task. I don't really care right now what you call it. I guess I should mention, though, that the stimuli that you will be uploading, and the way you do this, you use the browse button, and that's said in the videos that you watched on Wednesday. The stimuli that you will be uploading, you will have to download. Every single bitmap, every single picture that you'll need for this is available in a Google Drive folder that I have put on Blackboard announcements. In fact, maybe I should go show you that right now. So right here is the link. So I don't know why I couldn't turn it into a hyperlink. So you'll just have to copy and paste it into your browser and then open it up. And then you will have all of the stimuli. You'll download those to your computer, and then you will use this right here to upload them all into the psytoolkit server for your experiment, and then they're there, and then you're ready to start coding. And that's what I'm going to show you now, is the coding. So for this stuff right here, options, I'm not really going to explain these. This is just through my trial and error over at the beginning of the summer when I was figuring out what would be best for us. Just type this. Otherwise, things will look different and it won't look quite as good. So I would just go ahead and type this stuff verbatim. And this is just the way I do all of my experiments, and I don't really think it's necessary to explain exactly what this is doing. So right here, this next section is called bitmaps, and I had a question from Wednesday's assignment about this section. This is basically a list of all of the pictures that will be shown in your experiment. So we have, let's see, there's 16 of these, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 pictures that we're going to be shown. And each of these things right now is the exact file name of those pictures. And you can see that if I go to view files, this is correct one is the name of that one, instruction reel, BB1, GK1, all of the names of those files are shown right here. So every single file that you have in that folder that you're going to download from the announcement, on the link in the announcement, you're going to have to type it here in the bitmaps section. And it might, in case you don't notice, there are 2 spaces right there. 1, 2. There's no spaces from the word bitmap. That's right against the margin there on the left side. But then the individual files names occur after 2 spaces. You'll have as many words here as you have picture files. Moving along. It was also explained in the videos that you watched Wednesday that if you begin a row of code with a hash mark, that basically means psytoolkit knows that that's just a comment, and it knows to ignore that entire row. So this right here, my assistant over the summer just typed this to help us remember what the different buttons that you type in the stroop task means. D equals red, F equals green, J equals blue, and K equals black. So there are 3 main sections that you have to code for each experiment. I just showed you the entire experiment right there. So the first is you have to create tables. And then you have to create tasks. And then you have to create blocks. Those are the 3 things: tables, tasks, blocks. you'll be coding all of those. So let's kind of go through what each one does. Let's see, we'll start with the table, and it just has some names, and I'm not going to talk too much about like the tables, because tables and tasks and blocks, they are all talked about what these things mean in the videos that you watch for today. So I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly. Table, and then you come up with some name instructions. This is just a name, table, and then the name, we're going to call it instructions. Couple spaces, and then right here, this thing in quotation marks. This is basically like what you're gonna name the picture file that's going to be shown in the instructions. So the instructions are just, all it basically is a psytoolkit shows a picture file, and that picture file has words on it, and those words are the instructions. Eventually, we're going to have a data file, and that data file is going to tell us, you know, second by second, basically, what was the participant looking at each point in time. And right here, if you put something in quotation marks, you can make it so that this is the thing that appears in the data file. So first page instructions will appear in the data file, and we'll know that at this point in time, the participant was looking at first page instructions. So this is just the name, and it's just so you can see something in the data file that you'll recognize and you'll know what it means. The next thing, which is separated by a space right here, is the name instructions. That is the name of one of those picture files. And then this 0 right here and this 0 right here, these are X and Y coordinates. If it's 0, 0, then that means that the picture file is going to appear directly in the middle of the screen. And you can change this. They can be negative or positive numbers. It's like a Cartesian coordinate system. And so you can influence exactly where a given bitmap will appear on the screen. 0, 0 means it will appear in the center of the screen. And this is a button right here. This basically, the amount of buttons that you have in a given task, you're going to have, each one is going to be labeled, like, the first button they press would be 1, the second button would be 2, the third button 3, the fourth button they push would be 4. And so for the instructions, you always just have one button, and that's usually the space bar. And so usually you just start by coding the space bar as a 1. That's the first button they'll push. So that's that. The instructions, the first set of instructions, and you'll have a new table for the second instructions, but it's coded the exact same way. The name of that one will be second page instructions. The name of that file is instructions 2, but everything's coded the same way. It's in the center of the screen, and button 1, which is going to be the space bar. So we'll keep on going because things are redundant here. But you might want to take a screenshot of all of these right here so you can see all of the different things that you're going to have to be coding. Okay, so moving on. So things get a little bit more complicated when we have the actual practice trials, which is right here. So in the active practice trials, this is when participants are actually looking at the stimuli, the words that are of different ink colors, and they have to indicate the color of the ink that composes each word. And so once again, this is still just a table, but whereas instructions, each table is just showing one picture. For the practice trials, we have 16 different pictures, blue ink that composes the word blue, which is composed of blue ink, the word blue, which is composed of green ink, the word blue, which is composed of black ink, so on and so forth. There's 16 of those, and we want each one of those to appear in the practice trials. And so once again, these quotation marks, that's what's going to appear in the data file. This 1 right here means that it is a congruent trial. This 0 right here means it's an incongruent trial. We've dealt with this before. When we were compiling our data last week, we looked at these things and we used those 1s and 0s to compile the data into the congruent and incongruent conditions. Right here, this is the name of the file. And this right here is the button, which is the correct answer for that. So we need to go to the table real quick for the practice. or the task for the practice real quick. So right here, this is the task for the practice. And please note that this is the very first thing once you get to task practice is you type the word table practice. And what that tells psytoolkit is that it's going to be going up to this table and it's going to be using the information in this table. And it says right here, the keys that we are going to be using are D, F, J, and K. The very first letter here corresponds to the number 1 that you saw above. The second letter corresponds to 2. The third letter corresponds to 3. And the fourth letter corresponds to 4. So these are all of these numbers right here. 3, 2, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4. That corresponds to 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. Okay, so let's continue on. So you're going to have 16 trials of practice, and then you will have 16 trials. Then you will have the actual experimental trials. And if you notice that the table for the experimental trials looks identical to the table for the practice trials, it literally is. You could copy and paste it, and they're virtually identical. But we need to have separate tables because it helps keep things organized. One for the practice trials, and then another table for the actual experimental trials. The experimental trials are the ones that we'll actually be using to compile reaction times. So you can think of all of those tables. That's just information that's going to be used by the various tasks that will be performed in the experiment. So for each table that you have, you're going to have a corresponding task. So we've talked about all the tables. Now we're down into the tasks. And so here's the task for the instructions. So we refer to the table instructions. So it knows, oh, I'm going to use the table up above, which is called instructions. And up above, we said that we're going to have a button, which is going to be, we called it 1. And the very first button that is labeled here is space. And so psytoolkit knows that that button that we called 1 up above is the space bar, which basically means this is the correct answer. This is the button that the participant is supposed to push. And once the participant pushes this, then we go on to the next trial or the next task. This stuff right here just makes the background white. So just do this. I'm not going to explain this coding scheme 255, 255, 255. Just this makes the background white. It says right here, show bitmap at 2, at 3, at 4. What this is doing, so if we go to the table instructions, so we're in table instructions, it says show bitmap at 2, at 3, at 4. So we'll go to table instructions. Each of these things right here is a column. This right here is 1 column. This right here is column 2. This right here is column 3. This right here is column 4. This right here is column 5. So you can think of these tables as spreadsheets because that's basically what they are. And in a spreadsheet, you have rows and columns. This right here is basically a spreadsheet with 1 row, but it has 5 columns. And when it said below in the task, it said show bitmap at 2. What it's referring to, basically what it's saying is show the bitmap, which is in the second column. That's what at 2 means. And that bitmap is called instructions 2. But it also said at 3, at 4. And what that means is show the bitmap at the center of the screen, because that's what the coordinates are. This is the 3rd column right here. This is the 4th column right here. So show bitmap at 2 means this picture file at 0x coordinate, 0y coordinate, which basically means at the center of the screen. Let's see. And then read key number 5. Once again, the button push 1 right here. This represents the first button or the button that they're supposed to be pushing. And you need to just type in read key at 5. And then this is the amount of time they have to make a response, 60,000 milliseconds. So that's way more time than they need. But what happens is that's basically 1 minute. If they're reading instructions and they're not at their computer, then after 1 minute, it's just going to go to the next task automatically, even if they don't press the correct button, which, by the way, that button is spacebar. So here is the task. Whoops. For practice, and things get a little bit complicated here, and I do want you to do this with an if-then statement. Basically, what's going to happen, and this, you saw all this stuff, and if you, all the stuff I'm doing, if you want to remember exactly what this is supposed to look like as a finished product, you can go to the link that we used last week for the Stroop task, and you can see exactly how it worked. All of the stuff that I'm showing you here, you can see what it's supposed to look like in the Stroop task, because all we're doing is we're coding the exact Stroop task that we did last week. So here is how to do the actual practice trials. So the practice trials use the table called practice. We're using those 4 keys, 1, 2, 3, 4. The background is going to be white. We're going to show the bitmap at 2. That means the second column in the table called practice. That's the bitmap which is going to be shown. You'll read the key in column 3. You'll give the participant 4,004 seconds to do that. And then here is the if-then statement right here. If the status is correct, so that means if the participant presses the right button, if the status, that means is it right or wrong, if they got it correct, then they're going to show a bitmap, which is called correct, and they're going to show it 0x coordinate, 200 y coordinate. And they'll show it for 2,000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds. If the participant got it wrong, and here's the syntax for getting it wrong, exclamation point equals, this means not correct. If status equals not correct, then you'll show the bitmap, which is called incorrect, which literally says the word incorrect, and you'll show it at 0x coordinate, 200 y coordinate, and you'll show it for 2,000 milliseconds. And then for the practice, we want this stuff to show up in the final data file, and you can decide what information shows up in the data file by typing the word save, and then everything that you write after it will be saved on the data file, and each thing you type here will be a column in the data file. So the name of the block, which, by the way, the name of this block will be practice. Whatever information is at column 1. Column 1 is what is in the quotation marks, which is called just a name that you give something. Which table row? So this is a number for us in the practice. We have 16 rows for each practice, 1 for each stimulus. There's a row for black, black. There's a row for black, green. There's a row for black, blue. There's 16 total rows. And so this will be a number 1 through 16. The key that the participant pushes, whether the answer was right or wrong, and then finally their reaction time. All of this information appears in the data file. But this is the practice, so we're not going to compile these numbers into anything, but it's still nice to have. We're not going to be using these to calculate means, but it's still nice to have all of this information, so why not? So next is the actual trials. So the task Stroop, so this is the actual trials. And this is basically identical to what it was for the practice. The trials are the exact same thing as you did for the practice. So there's really nothing new to show here, exactly the same as it was for the practice. So finally to the blocks. There's all the stuff we've showed so far, the tables and the tasks, the order in which you put those up at the top, it just doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter at all. That's just a list. And the order in which everything occurs in the experiment is dictated entirely by the order in which the blocks are shown right here. So the very first block we have is called instructions. And you just write the word task list below that, the space, or 2 spaces, and then two more spaces, and then you'll write the word instructions right there. That's referring to what was above it. And then this one means this is the amount of repetitions right here. So we only want it to show the instructions file, the instructions bitmap, one time. So you just press 1, you type 1. And then it'll show the next set of instructions. This is the next block. It's called instructions 2. Write the word task list, and then the bitmap, it'll show instructions 2. And it's going to do that one time. Then type end. And then this is all of the blocks. And then things don't really, the same pattern for all the instructions, but then when we get to the practice and the trials block, things change a little bit. So we have practice, block practice right there. That's the name of the block. Then you write the word task list again, the name of the block practice. This means we're going to have 16 trials, which makes sense because we have 16 stimuli, and in the block, they're going to do one practice for each of the stimuli. And it's important that you type after the 16 a space and then all before repeat, separated by these underscores. That guarantees that psytoolkit will present each of those 16 stimuli once. So this is just the practice. Then you have instructions saying, okay, now the real thing is going to occur. And then a warm-up set of trials. This is basically another practice. It's the exact same structure as the blocks I showed you above. So block, you call it warm-up 1, say task list, and then you write the word stroop. 16 trials, and then all before repeat again, and it guarantees that all 16 of the stimuli will be presented. And then we have 5 actual blocks of trials. So the reason we have 5 is, if you recall, we had 80 total trials in the data that we compiled. We had 60 incongruent trials, 20 congruent trials. That's 80. The way you get that is 5 times 16 equals 80. So these are the 80 trials. You have a block of 16, then another block of 16, then another block of 16, then another block of 16, and then another block of 16. And then that's the end of all of the coding. So that was a lot of stuff real quick. I'm going to, for people that are going to, I'll post this video right away so you can actually see all of the code, and I'll just scroll down slowly. And then you can, if you're watching the video later and you need to and then you need to see something like exactly what you're supposed to be doing, you can literally see the entire code right here. If you don't understand something, you can just look at the code as I've done it right here and just type it verbatim like I have right here. So anyone have any questions or comments before we get started? I will be here, by the way, all period, and I'm going to give you an entire week to finish this. So you'll have until Friday night to finish this. But I suggest you do it today because I'm pretty sure you're going to need some of my help. But does anyone have any questions before we get started? All right. Go to it. If you already have group people that you want to work with, go for it. Otherwise, I will put whoever's remaining into breakout rooms, and I will be here for the entire period. So I'll be here until 12:45, or probably beyond that, to be honest.